It is important because the priest is the people's pastor. We can have a wonderful pope and we can have a great bishop, but most Catholics are more in contact with their priest, especially at the parish level. Indeed, my latest book by Ignatius Press, which came out 2 weeks ago, is on the evangelizing parish.
There we have it.
Oh, you have it.
And they have publicity pieces too. Show them that.
Oh, you have it. Then you will be interested in the section on school apostolate by the parish, because it's so important a part of it. Is not the whole, but it is very important. Now, the priest comes very much into that. It's no use for us priests and bishops to lament that many Catholics are ignorant on religious matters. They may be medical doctors, they may be lawyers, they may be people of great commerce, politicians, senators, but in religious matters, their knowledge has remained what it was when they were 14 years old. We cannot be happy with that. And the answer to darkness isn't to give a lecture on the benefit of light, but to put on the light. That's the answer to darkness. A priest should not, therefore, get discouraged, because there is a seeming organized media crusade against the image of the priest and even of the church. The world is very big. So in some countries, more than in others. There are countries where to be a priest is a great honor. And in Nigeria, you get around in the airport in your castle, and it's just normal. And when I'm at the airport in Nigeria, as I hope to be next week, they have to check my papers, the customs. They are more interested in getting a blessing. But that cannot be said about everywhere. There are places where some priests, the people don't seem to be very happy to see him on the street, not to talk of in the school. But the priest must not get discouraged because of that. There remain many people who have not bowed their knees to Baal. There remain many people in the church and outside the church that want the church to say the truth, to stand for the truth, not to quibble and go into double meaning statements. There are people who expect from the church to say it as it is, the gospel, without discount, so that people know what to do, what not to do, why they live, where they are going, and how they can get there. The scandals are not lacking. Even our Lord himself said that there will be scandals, and woe to those who scandalize. But at the same time, there are many good people, and many people who do good, they don't figure on page 1 of the newspapers. It is when somebody does something that should not be done. Then, especially if the person has a Roman collar. We should not, therefore, be afraid to appear as priests in society and to work. The gospel is not a contraband good to be smuggled across the customs. The gospel is good news to be announced at midday sunshine, such as we have today. We shouldn't hide the gospel. The priest should not hesitate, therefore, to identify himself as a priest. If he is in the school system, all the better. There is one country, I will not tell you which, in Africa, where they have many priestly vocations, and some of the priests are feeling that they don't have enough work. One priest said to them, look, there should be one of you teaching in every school from primary 1 when the children are 6 years old, so that you share religion with them. Whom do you think should be teaching religion in schools? You are priests. You have studied the faith. You celebrate it. You teach it. You live it. You are the ideal people to share it. Why do you consider it below your dignity to teach in a primary school? You think you should lecture in the university, and anything below that is below your dignity. You are not serious. Also, in that school system, the priest should identify himself. Countries differ. So there must be no generalization. But in every country, there is an accepted way in which a priest should vest, so that we recognize him as a priest. Why do you hesitate? If we're in the train, the ticket collector, we know because they have their uniform. The police has their uniform, the scout even have their uniform. The air hostess of Alitalia will not wear the dress of American Airlines just because she likes that one. If she's going to work for Alitalia's air hostess, she got to wear what Alitalia decided before they employed her. Otherwise, they can get out of the place. Why will the priest hesitate to identify himself as a priest? What is there to apologize for? Nobody will kill you because you are a priest. The worst he will do is not to look at you twice. You don't lose much. A priest who best preaches is the one whom the young people see as one who is at peace, who is joyful, who has transparent fire as a priest. If you have fire, then you can inspire. But if you are cold, you don't seem to know where you are going. Your Reverend Father cantankerous. You are not happy. You criticize your bishop from morning till evening, and you are unhappy with the Pope and Roman Curia from January 1 to December 31, and you expect young people to join you. You are not serious. Young people they are not allergic to sacrifice, but they want to join those who know where they are going. The same thing you apply to religious life, sisters, brothers, the sisters' congregations who don't seem to know where they are going anymore, who are generally unhappy, who don't even want their superior to be called the Reverend Mother. Well, they are committing congregational suicide. And then they turn around and tell us that they don't have vocations. They are the cause of the earthquake. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, one day I asked her, she was still alive then. Why do some congregations not have vocations? She gave me an answer worthy of a study. She said, I do not know because I never met that problem. She didn't want to condemn the congregations that don't have vocations, those that are doing what I call congregational suicide, and they don't know what to do with their property, and the bishop around the place would like to collect it, and the sisters, they are not. But she was not lacking vocations. And many people don't know, the sisters of Mother Teresa, they live a rigid life. Some of them have double-decker beds. They adore 1 or 2 hours before they begin work every morning in front of their chapel with Blessed Sacrament, with I Thirst, written very near the tabernacle. And they don't have more than 3 habits, including Mother Teresa. And I have plenty of castles. I have up to 12 of them. Father Peter, there's likelihood I'm going to do like that preacher who never stopped. People said he has finished, but he has not stopped. I don't want to damage the program. I just want to say, be happy to be praised. Spread the gospel, and you will soon find there will be some young men who want to be like you. You asked me to speak of Blessed Cyprian Michael. He was the first priest I ever knew. He baptized me in 1941. First communion, first confession. I was his mass server in 1945. When he did 13 years as diocesan priest, went to England, became a Cistercian in Mount St. Bernard in Nottingham Diocese. I was visited him a month before he died. I was at his funeral in 1964. So when I became Archbishop of Onitsha, I went to the office for saints in Rome. I said, I want to see the Cardinal. Good morning, Eminence. I have my saint in heaven. Canonize him, please. He said, we don't canonize him that way. I said, I don't know how you canonize, but I know I have my saint in heaven. It was this priest who inspired me. He didn't say to me, go to seminary. But where he worked, many boys wanted to go. Because if you are near fire, you are going to catch the heat. God bless you. Thank you. I just sit here and listen to Sister for a short time before I go.
All right, Sister.
Because I interrupted her.
She said before you came that she wanted to be able to speak to
Isn't that
Bishop.
something?
Yeah, and actually,
I got a cardinal.
Bishop Massa has arrived as well. So you've got a cardinal and a bishop. So.
Welcome, Bishop. You're right, I did say I wanted to speak to priests, seminarians, and bishops. Okay, and Cardinal Lorenzo really came into one of the points that my next point, and he kind of piggybacked on the first point. And the first point that I mentioned was that priests have to believe in and strongly support Catholic education, that idea of the passion, the fire for education. And my next point goes on to the priest being the church's presence to children, youth, to families, and the vocational dimension I also had here. So it was perfect timing, Cardinal Lorenzo. You didn't interrupt anything. You kind of helped along what I want to share. Okay, because I believe that if young boys don't see priests who are happy in their priesthood, who love their priesthood, who are present among them, are the church's presence among them, which is the point I was making right before Cardinal Lorenzo came in, that the priest is the church's presence to people. The closest thing people feel to the church is the presence of the priest among them. I can tell you from my own early elementary school education, our pastor was always around with us. He came in the playground in the morning before school started, before the bell rang, just walking among us. How's your grandmother doing? Because he had gone to visit her in the hospital. How he knew the names of the children. How's your father doing? He would come at lunchtime sometimes in the cafeteria and just say hi, how's your day, what's going on. He would come to all our school events that he could. Understandably, today with the shortage of priests, it's not always possible. But for me, it's the attitude and to be present when possible. When the priest has a school in his parish, to be as present as possible. And it doesn't have to be for long. Somebody mentioned before the basketball games, okay? Going to the basketball games. Even if it's for 10, 15 minutes, to say hi, see how it's going. You may not be able to stay the whole time. We do the same thing with our high schools, especially with our teams, our football games and so on. You can't always stay the whole time because you have other responsibilities, but to show yourself, to encourage, to be present. And that's one of my next point was that to be present, the church's presence. Okay? And the church's presence with joy, with enthusiasm, because the school, I believe strongly, and it's all the documents of the church and of the USCCB on Catholic education speak about the fact that the Catholic school is the church's best means of evangelization. We can create an environment for a long period of time, for years, and for many hours of every day. Many of our elementary schools have early care, aftercare. We have kids for 7 hours, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, for years. The influence is there, and the continuity is there. And those of you who may be working in high schools, a chaplain in Catholic high school. In my high school experience, having a chaplain on hand so that young people could go to talk to the priest if needed, could ask for confession if needed. Sometimes I wish I had the power of absolution at times with our kids because they would come and tell us everything. And say, would you like to see the priest? Okay. And if there's a priest on hand, that's wonderful. My next point is providing for and encouraging the liturgical and sacramental life. The school can also be a great help to encourage that life in the parish community. And I'd just like to share a few things. First of all, that it is so difficult today, and I know from the principals in our schools, to always find a priest for confessions for the school children, or for liturgy, for a holy day of obligation or a special event or whatever during the school day. And again, understanding with the shortage of priests in many of our parishes, it's difficult. But again, I have learned early in my life that we make time for what's important to us. If something is important to us, we're going to do our best to make the time. It may necessitate changing something. It may be that the pastor himself can't be present, but maybe can find another priest who can, so that there always is the opportunity for children to live the sacramental life. If we want to teach them that the sacramental life is so important, then we have to make sure that it's important to those who are educating them. And definitely, we need the priest for the sacramental life. And that's extremely essential. Also, one of the other things that I think is really, really important, the school children can provide, both at the elementary and high school levels, can provide experiences for the parish community to come together. For example, Christmas pageants or the Christmas play, the Living Way of the Cross, the Living Rosary during October. There are many things that the school, because you have the children every day, all the time, much easier than with a religious ed program when you only see them once a week and you have such a limited time. The school can provide these other opportunities of devotional prayers to enrich the parish community's prayer life. And people will come, parents and grandparents will come with their video cameras, their iPhones and iPads and whatever, but they'll come, they'll get a message. And the young people will see that this is part and parcel of our Christian life. Also, to encourage the school children to participate in all the outreach and social service projects the parish may have, so that the school may be entrusted with a certain element of preparing the Thanksgiving baskets or the Christmas whatever, whatever's being done, or reaching out to the food pantry, whatever might be possible and be an activity of the parish, that the school children grow up knowing that this is part of being Christian. This is part of being Catholic. This is part of living the gospel of Jesus, is to bring help, to reach out to others. And I've been in schools where this has been wonderful, and the pastor has been and I've been in places where the pastor doesn't want the children involved at all, doesn't want teenagers involved. And then we want our teenagers, and I left my book over there, but the going, gone generation, we want the teenagers to feel part of the parish community if we want to have a parish in the future, don't we? Because if we don't have the young, any culture, any group that does not hand on its values to its young is going to what? Disappear. If we don't transmit what is essential, okay, we are not going to have these young people as part of the church in the future, as part of the parish community. And I've heard young people saying that there's no place in our parish for us. There's nothing where we can feel needed, where we can take responsibility and assume leadership. And our young people in high school, our young college young people, okay, need to feel that there's a place for them, a place on the parish council, a place where they can make their voice heard, a place where they're needed, whether it's in the liturgical celebrations where the young people can be lectors and Eucharistic ministers and music ministers, etc. They have to feel they belong. This is going to avoid that going, gone situation if they feel part of the church community, that there is a place for them, that they are loved and wanted, and that their gifts and talents can be used. And finally, to foster the faith formation of the school community, the teachers. Cardinal Theresa mentioned this before. The importance, the priests may not be able to teach. When I grew up, our pastor taught 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade religion once a week. Once a week, we had our pastor for half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever it was, teaching us. Okay, so he was part of our religion program once a week. That may not always be possible. Again, if it is, it's a wonderful thing. Again, it makes that connection, that link with the church. But if the pastor can't do that, but to make sure that the faith formation of the faculty is cared for, that the faith formation of the children is cared for. We can't presume that because someone is a teacher, they can teach religion the way you teach geography, history, math, and so on. I do a lot of formation of catechists and formation of DREs. And I can tell you, a lot of formation of Catholic school faculties in religion. Okay, many, many times a person is there teaching in the classroom and teaching other subjects, which is fine, but it's not the same thing. Catechetics is very different. The catechetical ministry is different from teaching other subject areas in the academic areas. So that needs to be cared for. Not that the pastor himself would have to do that, but have an eye to make sure that is being done. That there is an emphasis on that formation, that faith formation of those who are supposed to be transmitting the faith to the children in the school. A very important element, and for me, it's one of my passions. Okay, so, I wrap it up saying that the pastor in a parish, especially the pastor in a parish where there is a school, has to be the good shepherd. And what does a good shepherd do? He leads the sheep to green pastures. He puts them by refreshing waters. He has a rod and a staff, and those are not meant to beat the sheep up, because you know what the rod was? The rod was the thick stick that the shepherd used to use to beat the tall grasses to make sure there were no holes where the sheep would break their little, very fragile legs, or there were no snakes that would hurt the sheep. So it was a preventive kind of thing to avoid what could harm them, right? And the staff was, it has that crooked neck, like the bishops carry the staff, right? To be pastors. Any pastor, the staff was to guide them in the right direction, to pull them very gently by the neck or by the legs if they were going in the wrong direction and going to end up going off the cliff. So, it's very important that the priest who has a school, and I hope all of you that are seminarians right now or young priests will be looking forward to hopefully being given a parish eventually down the road where you have a school. And whatever way you can support Catholic education, if you're not in a place with a school, but always have that love for Catholic education, which is really the Church's best means of evangelization. Thank you, and God bless you.
Any questions for His Eminence? This is here. As we say in the marriage ceremony, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Well, I'm not in such a hurry. If you have time,
We have time. All right. Speak up, boys. Father Noah, you look like you're chafing at the bit to say something. No.
they are hesitant who speaks first.
Thank you, Your Eminence. I'm in Jamaica, and I'm blessed to have the Daughters of Divine Love in my parish. I have 6 schools and 2 churches. But I quoted you recently when I stopped liturgical dance in my school masses, and I explained to them this is not part of the Latin liturgy. And as I said, if you listen to His Eminence, he'll explain that in Africa it is not dance, it's a graceful movement, a celebration. So it's not really a question, but thank you for what you've done in leading the church and leading us in worship.
Thank you. It's not my law. It's just interpreting what is actually common sense. But common sense is not very common. Dance.
It wasn't the daughters
Dance has not figured in the Latin liturgy. And whatever in Ethiopian rite looked like dance was not really dance, but graceful movement, or the Zairian form. But the problem, some parts of Africa, missionaries said, dance, you Africans must dance. It was the missionary enjoying the dance, not we Africans wanting the dance in the life. Because the dance has many, many purposes in Africa. We have a war dance when a village is going to war. We have men's dance when a man dies, those of his age, dance to show that he was brave. They kill a ram, beating it on the ground till they die to show strength. That's their dance. The women have their own dance. The girls have also their own dance, including a dance where they are looking for husbands. And the dance is made purposely provocative. Then there are also funeral dances. Then there is the ordinary dance, which is recreational. When there is a feast, people admire and so. But the Mass isn't for that. The Mass is for adoration, thanksgiving, reparation, and petition. Those 4 aims of the Mass. So, but they have the parish hall. After Mass, they go to the hall and they can dance. And that's okay, but not in the Mass.
Anything on liturgy while you have the man who ran the show for a long time?
I have a question of what you would say to in our, especially in terms of school kids, we seem to have a lot of pressure to
to either change wording or things of that sort to, and Father Denise spoke to this a little bit last night about changing the words of the scripture readings or changing the words of the mass so that the kid, it might be more, quote unquote, more understandable to the young people. And I know in my school there's been a lot of pressure to change the mass in such a way to make it more childish rather than so that the children could supposedly understand it better. What would you say to or speak to that in terms of, I feel a great tension because obviously the church doesn't necessarily want us to change certain words or change certain things. What would you say to the person that would state that children's liturgies should be completely focused on the children understanding or using language only that they can understand?
I would say catechesis, yes. Mass celebration, modified, no. So celebrate the Mass according to the books. But catechize the children according to their age, as the best scientific people in matters educational will advise. So the priest has plenty of opportunity to speak to them. But don't modify the wording of the missal. No, don't. If you imagine, even the scripture, when our Lord spoke, there were people of all ages. Everybody cannot be Thomas Aquinas or St. Bonaventure or Einstein. But people will take as much as they are able at their age, and they grow. But the instruction is the ideal place to tailor what you will say to the children. That means the homily. In some places where there are enough priests, some priests arrange a mass for children. And then everything is, the homily is tailored to suit them. The singing is not over prolonged, so that it suits the little ones. Where the priests are very few, it's not easy. Then you have a mass in which there are all kinds of people, those 80 years old, those waiting for final exam, those who are 3 and 5 mothers holding their babies. You do your best in the situation. But don't modify the text of the missal.
Bishop.
Oh, what the bishop?
Evidence, maybe just some general thoughts about the use of technology in Catholic education and teaching. Even our religious education materials are becoming digitalized. We're handing children Chromebooks and iPads as a way to assist their learning. But we also know the downside of technology. Some speculate about, more than speculate, there's now some evidence about the use of smartphones, the overuse of smartphones, and anxiety, depression among children. Any thoughts about how we as responsible agents of the gospel and Catholic educators can responsibly use technology?
Excellent. The answer is contained in what you have said. The modern media are God's gift for us at our times. We dare not condemn the modern media. They can be used very much. If St. Paul were in the world today, he would use all those media. But there is necessity of discipline, time given to these media, how they are used, and also not to damage the liturgy with them. In one place, I was celebrating Mass. One priest read the gospel from iPad, and after that, he gave me the iPad to kiss at the end. So, the Mass appreciate what a priest in the liturgy. He has a Mass book and a gospel book, evangelical reading book. So, those. But the media, they are here to help us. The young people have to be helped, not to be mastered by the media, to use discipline, to know where to stop with them, not to be telephoning all the time. Some young people, they won't read a serious book, always telephoning. It's all sick and tired. So superficiality, they can't even make correct sentences, they can't even write a good composition anymore because they have to get it from this and paste and combine, and so they have been mastered and ruined by the media. But the media can say, it's not our fault, you didn't use us with discretion.
I see they're warming up now. You may be sorry you started something.
I'm at a little parish. I've been there for a few years.
They are not in.
I'm at a little parish, 300 families, but we do get, on a given weekend, we get a lot of visitors. And there's a lot of things I'm trying to accomplish at the parish. And the thing that I've always got in the back of my head is when the Our Father comes along and everyone starts grabbing each other's hands, and holding each other's hands during the Our Father. Should I preach on this and tell the people quit holding hands during the Our Father? Or do I just say, okay, I've got bigger fish to fry and there's so many people coming in and out, it's going to get...
If I were visiting your parish and they held hands at Our Father, I would not say anything. But if I was the permanent pastor there with them week after week, then I would explain that the Mass book says to the celebrant, you hold your hands that way at the Paternoster, at the Our Father. But the Mass book doesn't say the people hold hands, unless any diocesan directory said it, which I doubt. So it is a type of abuse. But it is not a matter for which to go to the war front. No need to wage a big battle on that. If that is the only abuse in your parish, you are doing well enough.
Thank you, Your Eminence, for being with us. Just to dovetail off of your point, we do have a liturgical law in our diocese that says that people do not hold the hands of the Our Father, but we don't. It's not enforced anywhere that I know of, even though we try to explain. So in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I'm from, we have a very rapidly growing Catholic population, but not because of converts, because people are moving from New York, New Jersey, Detroit, from the north into the south. And what is emphasized in that transfer from the north into the south, there is a huge cultural gap between Catholicism in the north, Catholicism in the south, because we've held on to a very just middle of the road liturgical tradition, and even, if you will, conservative of some of the practices. It's not uncommon in the diocese to have reception of Holy Communion at the communion rail, kneeling it on the tongue, of having very few parishes that distribute the precious blood, etc. So anyways, these practices, we have trouble in catechizing the faithful on the liturgy because it seems like it will divide the parish between those who have moved in and trying to have them adapt themselves to a Southern Catholic culture, and then those who have been there for a long time. So my question is, liturgical catechesis, how can that, in the same language environment, how can it span cultural divisions? And how is it possible to bring two cultures together through the Roman Rite?
I would say, go gently. Don't hurt the people's sensitivity by direct collision. Where a practice is really an abuse, go carefully. If you are the permanent pastor, begin by informing them. Bring the church books so that they see that liturgy is not a question of I think or I want, but it is a question of Holy Mother Church says. So the liturgy is not an area where a person is going to say, nobody is going to tell me what to do. No, the church is going to tell you what to do, because it is public worship in the name of the church. And you are not allowed to change it. But in private worship, you can do as you like. But you will go gently. You mentioned communion in the hand or kneeling. On that, so much misunderstanding. But in the Latin Rite, even though earlier centuries in the hand, and even people brought Holy Communion to relatives, but with abuse along the centuries, the Latin Rite learned to give on the tongue, kneeling, And that's the normal thing. Except that in some places, about 30 years ago, the people, some pushed to have in the hand. I remember we were having one meeting in Rome, and one ecclesiastic said, I don't give communion in the tongue. I am not a dentist. I give only in the hand. I thought that was too much. So, as I was one of those chairmen in the meeting, I said, Holy Father, Venerable Brothers, this communion in the hand raises plenty of problems. Carelessness, particles that fall on the ground. Every communicant is not a theologian. They don't know that every particle is the real presence. Then nonchalance, reduction in Eucharistic faith, gradual. Then worse, one person took the host home and put it in an album as a souvenir of Rome, together with photographs taken in Rome. Another sold the host for $2,000. Said that this one was consecrated by the Pope, the other one by the priest. He received that one. So they hide it. Worse, devil worship. Some take the host, hide it, and use it to honor the devil. It really happens. It's a terrible thing in the world of today. That's why the book said, when you give Holy Communion in the hand, watch that they put it in the mouth immediately. Which means, if the people will kneel and receive on the tongue, is better. One bishop, when I was in divine worship, said to me, there is a college in my diocese, and they don't want to receive standing, but the Bishops' Conference of the United States of America said they can receive in their hand standing. I said, Your Excellency, if your college students want to receive kneeling down, congratulations for having a college where they have the Catholic faith. Fine. Why don't you rejoice? The bishops allowed communion in their hand, but they don't order it in the sense that if people want to kneel and receive on the tongue, you leave them in peace and not in pieces. Don't crush their sensitivity. Allow them that. But if they want to receive on the hand, all right, don't fight. Don't fight them at the very moment of giving the Holy Eucharist. If I'm the permanent pastor, you will notice that Pope Benedict, if you were to receive from him, you got to kneel and receive on the tongue. If you are not ready for that, you go back where you came from. Which means, really, if I had a say at the time communion in the hand was discussed, my opinion would have been. But it is allowed now, so it is allowed. But it is not without problems. After this, my mind, so as not to destroy your program for the
Your Eminence, most of us have situations where people just come to Mass twice a year, Christmas, Easter, Ash Wednesday, Palm Sunday, very rarely. And on those days, the church is overpacked with people, mostly uncatechized, there just because of the important holy day. How would you address the congregation that all of a sudden all these people who don't come to Mass regularly, not to judge them, but not coming to Mass, they'd be in a state of mortal sin, they all come up for communion? How would you address that? Because oftentimes, like priests will say, well, don't come up, please come up to communion if you're properly disposed, but those people have no idea what it means to be properly disposed, or come up to communion if you're worthy of it, of receiving the sacrament. Well, of course I'm worthy, I'm a good person. How would you, in a brief catechetical way, address these people that would get the point across that not everyone just gets up and comes forth for communion?
Those occasions when people come, who rarely come, are moments of grace for them. The priest, particularly who does the homily, has to go very carefully, not too long, but substance. Don't waste one word. Give them good catechesis. Help them, because they don't know, and they don't know that they don't know. That's why they come to Mass at funerals, Christmas, Easter, and weddings. In my country, such people wait at the end of Mass for wedding. Then they take photographs outside. That's the part that is important for them. So give them very good instruction. Avoid wasting words with praising the dead or praising the married, or get into serious theology, because very rarely do those people come to mass. Then do go gently in how to tell them who comes for Holy Communion and who does not. In my country, how they announce it is when they think there are many also non-Catholic Christians who are present, they say Holy Communion is now only for Catholics. Catholics, you know our laws on who can come and who cannot come. Thank you. In Nigeria, we say Your Highness.
Your Eminence, Your Eminence, before you leave, can we have your blessing?
May the name of the Lord be blessed.
Now and forever.
Our help is in the name of the Lord.
May heaven and earth.
May the blessing of Almighty God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit descend on you and remain with you forever.
Amen.
Thank you. And pray for me too.
Thank you, Cardinal.
I take orders. He said, I'm up. I don't think Father Peter will miss anything if I begin. So how was everyone today?
Wonderful. Good.
You know, it's not fair to follow that. Oh my goodness, it's like coming before lunch. Oh, it was wonderful. Well, my name is Margaret. I'm superintendent of the Archdiocese of Newark and Secretary for Education. It's a wonderful job. Cardinal Tobin is our Archbishop of Newark, and he is a fabulous leader. Leadership is key to all success. You are a leader. You are key. My background is Catholic education, elementary school. I grew up in Midtown Manhattan, walked 2 blocks to go to elementary school. My high school was my elementary school was the first 4 flights of the large tenement in New York, and my high school was the other 4 flights. So I had 12 years in one building with the Sisters of Charity. Then went to college in Riverdale, New York, Mount St. Vincent. Then went to Assumption College. There's nothing he was wonderful. Absolutely. Thank you. And finally went to Columbia for the doctorate in education. I began actually, I applied, I only knew Catholic education. I applied to Cathedral High School in New York. I was a foreign language teacher, but they didn't give me the job. Oh, I said, what's wrong with me? So I went to public school. And I eventually became superintendent in the public school. But being superintendent in the public school was very good, but I missed something. I missed something that was ingrained in me in all the years of Catholic education that I had. And I had to go back. So I started back in Bridgeport, the Diocese of Bridgeport with Archbishop Lori, who is now in Baltimore, and then was recruited to come here with Archbishop Meyer. And when I came back, I realized what gift Catholic education gave me that I wanted to give to the children, and why I came back to the students. I'm going to ask you to think for one moment. If you had to think of a gift that your Catholic education, how many of you went to all Catholic schools or some Catholic schools? So, okay. What gift do you believe you received from your Catholic education? You don't have to tell me. You just think about it. What was that gift that, as a pastor of a school, you have passion about, and you model, and you know this is a gift that you want to give your students when they leave? For me, that gift was something which I have called spiritual stamina. By that I mean, life, you wish it was all even keel, but it isn't. There's ups and downs throughout life.
The only thing that got me up and down through life and some successes is something I call spiritual stamina. It allowed me, if you're up on all the trends in education, there's something called growth mindset. It came out of Harvard University a number of years ago. Books are written on it now. And it talks about resilience. It talks about that drive you have. And it talks about your ability to not only survive, but thrive. And I always say to parents when I speak with them, and to pastors, Catholic education has had that forever. Public schools are just beginning to think about it. But we have had growth mindset. We have had the strength to continue when things have gotten difficult. I believe to be a good pastor, a good principal, a good superintendent of schools, you have to be passionate. You have to be energetic. And you have to be able to understand what gifts Catholic education has given you that you want to share with others. As I looked at Bridgeport, Connecticut, Diocese of Bridgeport, and the Archdiocese of Newark, in both areas, there was change going on. Change in what you call a governance model and a finance model. In some areas, well, I can talk about Newark. Who is from Newark here? One, two. When we look at Newark's governance model, it has become much more of a partnership. When the dean was talking about hiring principals, now the school's office and the pastor hire the principal together, and it's a partnership. And the school's office says to the pastor, we will never hire anyone that you don't want. And the pastor says, school's office, we don't hire anyone that you want. It all came about because Archbishop Myers had called a commission together, and he had 33 people over 22 months. And their feeling was the pastor is the spiritual leader. In some cases, they have an education background. But if you put experts in the office and they work with the pastors, how much more strength can you have? How many more gifts can you give the students? So the model became one where the partnership had to grow. We began with, if you've done any research on why parents send children to Catholic schools, sometimes you might get a little bit depressed because that's not why I went to a Catholic school or you went to a Catholic school. But when you do the marketing research, they go to Catholic schools according to the research. First, for academics. Second, for safety, especially your urban areas. And third, for faith. I once heard a speaker, and he said, I'm telling you right now, you have to bring the kids in. He's a college professor, college president. You have to bring the youngsters into your school because you have the best academics. But woe to everyone if when they come out of your Catholic school, they don't practice their faith. And I thought to myself, isn't that interesting? So the model in Newark, which was set up by the commission, is something like this. It goes like, the school's office is a service agency. The school's office serves the pastors, it serves the principals. In servicing both the pastor and the principal, you have to have academics that are second to none. If you're in suburbia and you have schools that charge no tuition and their scores are up here, and you're just about here, don't forget, the faith is tremendous. Get them in the door. They're not going to leave you then because you have the value proposition. You have that spiritual stamina, and you have to talk about it. That's my gift. I can talk about that. Your gift is even more important than my gift because you're going to talk about it with passion. You talk about it with energy. Say, this is what we give your students. Yes, we have academics. This is what we say in Newark. We have academics that are second to none. Never put down a public school, never put down a charter school, but our academics are second to none. However, this is more than that. So now they're thinking, I go to a public school and I get academics that are second to none, but I don't get anything else. So you bring them in, and eventually you want them to sit in the pews. You want them to be practicing Catholic. And that's where the mission of the parish has to align with the vision of the school. If you take that away, it's a mouthful. It's something we're still working on. We have 93 schools in the Archdiocese of Newark, and we're working on that. As a service organization, our Catholic office has hired fabulous people. We have a curriculum map online. The curriculum map tells you everything that parents want to know what their children are learning from first grade to 12th grade. Every semester. It has one column which says gospel values. So you learn no subject unless gospel values are integrated into that course. You can go online, look at curriculum mapping in the Archdiocese of Newark, you can look at it yourself. So it's very important that it's integrated. You spoke about technology before, Bishop. We have a religious who is a principal who every morning stands at the door, and as the students come in, she's texting them. So I said to her sister, I was visiting the school, what are you doing? She says, well, I've taken all the readings of the week and I've synthesized them. And I sent them to all my students. And I said to them, when you come in the morning, I want to hear what you think about them. So I'll go, Mary Jo, what did you do with the reading here? She said, they answer me and tell me. Oh, interesting. I learned something in the schools every day. But that's how this religious has said, you see me, you're going to see the reading. And she's using something which is someone who tweets. Someone tweets. That's it. This religious is 75 years of age, and she can run circles around every one of us. So I'm sharing with you. So this is very important to understand. Another thing we work very hard on it, the blue ribbon status for elementary schools. It is not us that decide that the students place in the top 15% of the nation's students who are taking the test. It is the United States Office of Education. And we use that all the time to say our academics are second to none. So again, as you look at your school and you look at how to allow that school to grow, you have to be a partner with your principal. And you really have to take your parish council, and if your school has a board, you have to bring them together and say, what is your vision? And this is our mission. How can we make it not only a community of learners, but a community of faith, which is centered in the parish? And that's very important to put into the model that are created. This is what we have seen when we, I don't want to forget anything. When I was looking at how do I help the pastors, what kind of ideas can I give them? I started to do a little research on trends, different pastors who had spoken about what was successful for them. And you have to think about this, and again, what I have found as superintendent and as principal and as teacher in the classroom, you have to have a comfort level. If some of these things I read that will help you, other pastors said, this has really helped us do very well in our school. If, however, you feel that I'm not comfortable with that, think about another one. Think about what you can do that's not on this list. This is what pastors have said. The following practices below are ways that pastors actively and successfully position the school as a vital parish school ministry. 1, holding weekly meetings with the core leadership team. I was with one of the Monsignors in Newark yesterday. He said, you know, when I was a pastor, I made sure weekly I held meetings with my principal, with the head of school when the principal was gone, with the head of the religious education department. And he said, and then I also wanted the music person there and the liturgical person there. So we had great meetings, and we really were able to get on the same page, aligning the vision with the mission of the parish. Holding monthly meetings with the entire staff, all parish ministries, including school staff. So he wanted to bring all of your, some people call pastoral office PCLs or DREs or catechists. So all of that together, he brought them together, and he said, and it's really made for a much more energetic, vigorous group that would be talking together. Sharing information with school families on multiple occasions. An important piece of this financial data, which shows the overall cost to educate. You know, education is paid for by tuition. So tuition brings money into the school to help educate the child. Fundraising brings money into the school to educate the child. There's still a gap. And the pastor and principal together have to educate the parents that they're not paying for the cost. Tuition does not pay the cost of educating the child. If you pay $4,000 for an elementary student to go to school, it really costs you $6,000. So how do you make up that other $2,000? And that's where you're asking the parents to fundraise and so on. When you're speaking the same language as the principal, you're both on the same page. Finances are difficult. So you're always looking for additional means of finance. The next thing is share statistics on your school's outcomes compared to other schools. That's the academic piece. And you can say, we're doing this and we're doing that. That's very important. But have proof. We live in an empirical society. Have proof of what you're doing. Helping families who are not enrolled in the school to understand that they may be able to attend the school. And many times parishes are able to give scholarships to youngsters. We just had a capital campaign in New York where each pastor was given a certain amount of money to send Catholic school students to the schools. Because many times we're getting, especially in the urban areas, a lot of our non-Catholic, and that's fine. Everyone says we educate we educate all children, we educate those who are non-Catholic because we're Catholic. So again, that's important to know. But you may be able to help some of those youngsters go to school. Welcoming the skills and knowledge of school families and helping them share their gifts with the parish. If you know that there is a member of the school who has an expertise in even a culinary expertise, they're able to cook a wonderful boeuf gaston or something. You bring them in, you have them do something like that, but kind of give an opportunity for your school staff and for your parish staff to work as a team. That again creates that parish, aligns the parish with the school. And you need more of that to bring about the community. Engage the school and the parish social justice committee, events and activities, mentioning school events and good news from the pulpit, inviting principals and our school parents to speak at Mass. Some of my principals get annoyed and they say, Dr. James, why doesn't the pastor speak about us at church? And as Sister said, there was a pastor who said the school will close in 2 years. But that pastor had a very spunky principal who went out and just said it will not close. So again, you don't want that though. You don't want that dichotomy. You want to work together as a team. I think Sister or Dean also mentioned to have pastors in schools who want to be in schools. That's really the key. It's leadership. It's your principal leadership, your pastor leadership. Together, we will be able to give the youngsters all the gifts in this room that you have received from your Catholic education. We are so fortunate to have had it. Engage the school in the parish social justice. Insert weekly parish bulletins. Insert weekly parish bulletins in the school's backpacks. The students bring them back in, or they have sent digitally now their weekly message to the parent. Put your parish bulletin in there. These are wonderful things we're doing. And many times, because Catholic schools, especially in the Northeast, their enrollment decreased. They have attracted students from all over. So in the past, when I went to school, everybody who was in my class was a parishioner in that parish. That doesn't exist now. It exists some places, I shouldn't make a generalization, but it doesn't exist everywhere. So you put the parish bulletin in the backpack and you say, these are great things, and a little note from the past. Now you are touching all of these youngsters who may not live in your parish. It's a wonderful outreach. And again, the comfort zone is very important. Collaborating on common ground issues between religious education and the school by seeking to balance interests as best as possible. Think to yourself, do you have a working relationship with the religious education teacher and your principal? If not, that's something you have to encourage, because you have to bring them together as one. So you find common ground. They're both teaching religion. Both of them. Okay, so what are some texts you're using? How are you using it? Does the Archdiocese have one approved textbook? Are you adding resources for it? So try to get something which is common ground. Planning and celebrating the sacraments together where appropriate, recognizing that the sacramental life of parish is essential to the growth of the community. So at the start of the year, well, how many of you have now all of the school children having made their sacraments in the parish? Yeah, one? No one else? The school children, when a child in the school receives their sacrament in school, and a child in the parish receives their sacrament in the parish. Okay.
I think I understand.
A second grader.
For example, for us, we have 3 or 4 parishes that send to St. Mark's School, but they have to go back to their parish to receive their sacraments. So they have to be involved in, like our confirmation students, they get catechized in the school, but they have to be involved in youth ministry in their parish. It's the diocesan policy for 2 to 3 years.
Thank you. How many of you
The
have?
same with confirmation in the high schools, in our diocese anyway, it's in high school, so they go back to their parish.
I would just weigh in to say this. I am very opposed to insisting that kids in a Catholic school have to go to a religious ed program to receive a sacrament. To me, that's double jeopardy. And it says that either we're not doing our job in the school or it's a penalty. So the kid who goes to public school goes 1 hour a week, but the kid who gets religion 5 times a week, then has to go an extra hour. And there's great resentment to that.
There's something called proximate preparation, which does bring families together from both communities. So when you approach First Communion and confirmation, that's the one exception to that, Father Peter.
And that's where you want to go.
Yeah.
Exactly what the bishop said. That's where you need to go. Sister,
We have the same setup as the Bishop was mentioning, that they have the instruction in the school, as Father was saying, they already are instructed in school. But for the other elements, the retreat elements, the parent meetings, the godparents in terms, the sponsors in terms of confirmation, okay, the parents in terms of First Eucharist reconciliation, they come together for the meetings, and the young people are together for some of the initiation that we do for confirmation and the handing out of the gospel, different things that are done in some of the parish programs. So the instruction, though, is done in the school. So I think it's a combination of what Father said with the association with the parish.
it is very important. There's a common ground that you have to look at and to bring, as Bishop said, that delicate balance where now the school youngsters make their sacraments in the parish, no matter where they live. They go to their parishes, different parishes, so they make them together. And then afterward, you may bring them all together in the school and in your parish for a celebration. So that's something else that you might be able to do. But what you just heard here is very typical of a pastor who has to sit down with the religious education teacher and with the school principal and say, look, all these youngsters, if this is what your archdiocese or diocese is doing, to return to their parish and receive the sacrament. And then you have the school and that parish working together as a team. Very important. And then your relationships with other pastors, those pastors that don't have school, you kind of share with them what your school is doing and how they can join you and work with you. So again, that's that relationship that you are always building and always working toward. Many times there is that, again, at that time you don't want that. And you have the ability to smooth it over, and that's important. At the start of each year, establish a planning committee of your GRE, your principal, your religious education teacher, and your school teacher. Notice all these pastors who have responded to the survey are talking about bringing people together and collaborating. Connecting religious education and school students as prayer partners. Do you ever think about that? I had never thought of that. Religious education students and your school children and have them as prayer partners working together. Having one big party for our sacramental recipient and their families, not two separate gatherings. Schools and pastors to work with them and to assist them in understanding the mission and sharing it with their students and families together. You really can move mountains. There's nothing that can stop you. Does anyone have any questions for me? Principal, pastors, incidents, situations. A lot of very practical things because in education, and I think Sister may have said it, or Father may have said it, so many things might be real common sense. You begin in education and you begin as a school pastor, you think, what do I know? I'm not an educator. Don't be silly. So much of it is common sense. Yes.
Do you have, are there like superintendent conferences, Catholic superintendent conferences?
Yes.
Really? Okay.
Yes, there are. There is,
we have, I think, the way you've kind of talked today, like the school office is at the service of the priests and they're there to encourage the principals. There are times where I think sometimes school office superintendents just get on the phone and they're just dictating things to principals, and it's not always ideal.
driving me crazy, right? Another initiative. What needs to be done is the first word that we say is we really need a partnership. And if you have the partnership, for example, a superintendent has to be very visible. Even with 93 schools, we have a walk around Wednesday where the superintendent will go out and walk around. That's okay, sit there, Bishop, sit. I'm fine, I'm sitting. And here's another chair right here. But it shouldn't be like that. A superintendent should not get on the phone and not have any kind of understanding of what's going on around them. It's very interesting if a superintendent has been a teacher. You understand. I mean, I go into every classroom when I visit, I walk around Wednesday, and I say to students, tell me, you are 8th graders and you're leaving our school, our wonderful Catholic school this year. Can you tell me 3 gifts? I know there are 3 gifts that your school has given you. Could you tell me what those 3 gifts are? You're going away with those 3 gifts, and nobody can ever take those gifts away from you. What are they? And I wait. The teacher in you. And you're all teachers. You all went to school. You all know what it's like to go in, and they love the pastor coming into their room. The students' first thing they'll say is, we got knowledge. Okay, that's good. Then they'll say, we got service. We know how to deal and help other people. Very good. And then the little girl will say, we have the faith. And that should have been first. And then look at me. And then I go into my spiel about Catholic education and spiritual stamina. I said, just think, how did you feel the other day when they chose this young man to be captain of the basketball team, but they didn't choose you? How'd you feel about that? That's where, say a little prayer, take God, give you strength to continue. You just get out there and you do your thing, because maybe next time you'll be captain. Or when the girls start, you have to relate to them, the girls start teasing, you walk away because you don't want that to happen to you. You say, I'm not involved with it. You get that spiritual stamina. That's what makes your Catholic education so special, is your faith. Then we end with a prayer. So you work with the students, and I will say, as Sister said and the Dean said, you want to be involved in the school. You want them to invite you, and they do. They invite you all the time, so you have to say, no, thank you, I've had it. But you shouldn't be on the phone and just dictate. The school's office many times has a lot of initiatives, and some of them they can't help. For example, the safety now. Terrible things are happening in schools and safety, and there's a lot that has to be done with safety. So you have to spend time and say to principals, make sure your doors are locked. Make sure if you use the money.
We have a session at noon about that, so.
Oh, I saw that, Father. I'm going to try to stay for that. So I think that's excellent. So
all right, I think we better cut it here. And
they're cutting me off. Look at that. Oh,
you blame the Cardinals for that.
No, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm going to try to stay for lunch. So I'll see you then. Thank you.
We had one more, and Denise, but we're going to ask you to hold off. We're going to piggyback it later. I just noticed by accident all 4 presenters were women. So much for women not having a voice in the church. Let's take a 10-minute break and then come back and we'll have our next session, okay?